Welcome to a new budget analysis video. Today we will analyze the budget of this 49-year-old man, separated, who finds himself paying 700 euros for children's support, who has some money saved but who is worried about the future because he is afraid he won't be able to handle unexpected expenses. Before you go, subscribe to the channel because guys, more than 80% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. This is really crazy, so if you're not subscribed, do it. In the description of this video, you will find a link. You have a questionnaire to fill out that is totally anonymous. Answer the questions. Please answer as detailed as possible because this way, if the case is interesting, there is more hope that I fish it out and analyze it in one of my videos. So it's not that I analyze all the ones that are presented, but indeed I fish one out every now and then I make a video about it here on the channel. With that said, let's get started with today's case. Alright, perfect. Let's take a quick look at this person's situation. 49 years old computer technician, separated with 2 children. He has a really good salary, but often this doesn't mean being able to save. Net monthly salary, 3,300 euros including 13th, 14th and bonuses. So guys, income is not the problem because then we will see that he is really very good at management. But here there are situations that cannot be changed, for example to debts or loans. Fixed installment of 700 euros for ex-wife's alimony. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail here because I'm not very familiar with the topic of alimony, separation, things like that. What is certain is that this is an expense that you can't really do much about. It's there and therefore we have to act accordingly. The positive thing is that he doesn't have a mortgage or rent. In fact, here's the question: how much do you spend a month on necessities? He tells me that he doesn't have a mortgage or rent. This is a positive thing. Let's say that the fixed rate for alimony, precisely for his ex-wives, kind of replaces the mortgage, because we can say it replaces this expense. Then we have 300 euros a month for groceries, 300 euros a month for the children. Because indeed, he has to split the costs for clothes, school fees, transportation, books, sports, dentist and tutoring. And that's fair enough. 350 euros for bills, water, electricity, gas, internet, Netflix and phone. So we can say that all the bills, 350 euros per month is reasonable. 350 is reasonable. Exactly. Then surely guys, always check if there are new offers, new conditions. Every now and then also consider changing your electricity, gas or phone provider. Many times it can even lead us to spend less. So every so often we need to go and look into these things. Then 60 euros for the gym per month, 60 euros for insurance, 50 euros for medical expenses, 100 euros for shoes and clothes. It tells me average lump sum, so we're talking about more or less 1,200 euros a year between shoes and clothes, 250 for gas, 60 euros for car maintenance and tax, and 30 euros for the vet. Now let's look at all the expenses, then in the end we'll make a final consideration. How much do you spend each month on leisure? 150 euros a week for a pizza a week. With my partner and my children, cinema every now and then, sometimes a small day trip. Then optional 40 euros a month for tobacco, which in the end for a smoker is 40 euros a month. It's acceptable, even if it's not good for health, but anyway, it's not excessive. How much are you saving each month? For how long? Can you tell me? About 400 euros when there are no unforeseen expenses. Pay close attention to this step because we will look at it together soon and we will see something very important that many underestimate. You have a contingency fund. Here it is positive because he has 10,000 euros set aside, but I have not divided them between contingencies and long-term savings. Well, this is in quotes, the lesser of two evils. The important thing is to have some money set aside. What would you like to achieve financially? I want to feel secure when I have unforeseen expenses or major costs, like a car. Now I'll quickly dwell on this point because one very important thing is clarity and clarity. In this case, what does it mean? What is it for you to feel secure when you have unforeseen circumstances? That is, This thing needs to be defined, in this case in terms of money, because for me to be secure, in terms of unforeseen circumstances, it could be having a side 10,000 euros for another person, it could be having a side 20,000 for another, 5,000 for someone else, 50,000. So guys, when we go to define our goals, we really need to be clear. And about this, as I always say, I talk about it well in my course, that if you want, you can find in the description, because clarity is power. The clearer you have the situations you want to achieve, the better and easier it is to realize them. Then here he indeed also talks about significant expenses, like the car. Now he is really very good, because he has neither the mortgage nor the rent and not even the car expense. Because another person in such a situation with the car installment and the mortgage would be finished, that is, would be upside down, even with such a high salary. So he is definitely very good. I think, according to him, important expenses like the car, so changing the car, which from my way of seeing things, an average person who still works as a laborer, who is an employee, who has an average salary, here we are talking about a good salary. The expense for the car should be around 10,000–12,000 euros. Then it's true. It depends a bit on how the market goes, because maybe in the recent period the used car market has increased. A little bit, but in my opinion, with that amount you can find a used car, well maintained, not with many miles, and that can still go on for about 10 years. We can easily say that maybe his goal could be to double. Maybe to have aside 20,000 euros and thus be able to pay cash for the car when it needs to be replaced. Then what is stopping you from achieving what you desire? A constant feeling of lack and feeling all the responsibility for my children and my partner. Now I say this, the truth. I can't understand 100% how one might feel, because fortunately I'm not separated, so I don't have this situation, which certainly is not a good thing. Because indeed when a family, both parents who work, is united, there is more stability. Because the separation, however, leads to upheaval, leads to additional expenses. However, well, it's not a really nice situation, so certainly the psychological factor it's not the best. I can understand it from one side, because precisely this sense of stability is somewhat lacking. I don't know how long this person has been separated, the age of the children, why doesn't he say it? But if at 49 years old, I think they are quite grown up, in the sense, even if he had them at 40, he at 49 years old, well, I think between 7–10 years old. Now I can imagine what difficulties you encounter in managing money. Often the needs of others increase, and I can't put anything aside. I finish all the questioning, then we go through point by point. So what would you like to ask me? Despite not earning little and not having a mortgage or rent it's not always easy to save. You notice some mistakes, and here we'll get to it shortly. Then, well, he says, tell me a bit about your personal story. Separation doesn't help financially. Exactly what I was saying a moment ago. Over time, I managed to separate the mortgage and pay off the car. And here you've been really, really good. So I compliment you on this. I've cancelled Amazon Prime, I don't have Disney, I don't have Sky, I do the insurance online to save money. In short, I feel like I've been good and careful. I drive slowly and smoothly. To consume less, I eat less meat because it's expensive. I wouldn't know what more to do. So I must say, in general, you are very good at managing money. You've also been really good at saving. You've done the best thing you could do. So not having debts, so no loans, and not having a mortgage, so yes, this is a great thing. Then here it tells me, despite not earning little and not having a mortgage to pay, it's not always easy to save. Do you notice any mistakes then? The thing to highlight is certainly the discussion of having a fixed food rate, which is equivalent to having a mortgage. This is something you can't change. But it's also true that it might not be there forever, because when the kids grow up, this expense will be removed. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, after 18 years, well, you no longer have to provide child support. Then, of course, there are expenses, you have to help them and so on, but, well, maybe that fixed expense is missing. Now, the point is, you can't do anything about this. You can't do anything because, indeed, children need to be supported. Is that right? So it's something that beyond your control is something you can't act on. All of this, guys, let's analyze the expenses a bit and how can he reach his goal. So the first thing I can recommend, precisely define the goal clearly. That is, understand what it means for you to be safe and have the money for the car. Because precisely you have to establish a budget to create an action plan to reach this budget and this goal. Now, how could he act on his expenses? Well, in my opinion, there are some things that are not huge, but that could help him to trim something because anyway, he is really good at managing money. And these two things could be one, the gym subscription, because 60 euros is a bit pricey. There are gyms that, well, are low cost and where he can spend something less. And then shoes, clothes, 1,200 euros a year, in my opinion, are a bit too many. Okay, because if we talk, I don't know, let's estimate. We're talking about a 150 euro budget for winter clothes, a 150 euro budget for summer clothes, and let's add another 200 euros for shoes in a year. If you get a pair of winter shoes, a pair of summer shoes, which then, anyway, if you take good care of them, they last more than a year. So maybe the following year, you don't have to change them. That's it, if we see it this way. We're talking about 500 euros a year for clothes. So against 1,200, it's another expense. Do we want to add another 100 euros? Okay, fine, 600 euros. Have you still halved the expense for clothes? Then another thing where one could intervene is the weekly outing for pizza with the partner and children. Occasional cinema, sometimes a small day trip. Now here, one could intervene and perhaps make a small sacrifice because it is right to go out anyway. And maybe instead of going out once a week, take off a week and make a homemade pizza. Do something homemade and cook all together, which can still be fun, and only go out 3 times a month. This would earn you an extra 150 euros a month that you can put aside. Then as for other things, why then did I go here to do the math? And practically, what happens? That he, with the expenses he has at this moment, comes to 3,200 euros a month in expenses, okay? So he has 100 euros left in savings and not exactly 400 euros as he told me, which in fact what he says, 400 euros. I set them aside when I don't have unforeseen circumstances. Now the point is this, guys, to set aside only to take away immediately. However, not always being able to set aside is a mechanism that is not good. Why? Why? Because it often makes you lose trust. Okay, now what happens? That we have to save based on what we can do and manage to find a figure that is regular, that is set aside apart and not touch it. Okay, otherwise, exactly, this thing discourages us and it's not good. So rather than setting aside 400 euros and not being able to do it always, it's better to set aside less but do it regularly. At least this is my way of seeing things. Now, with these tips that I have given you on the expenses that you can trim, you might not reach 400, but at least 300. Because according to my philosophy of money management, we should set aside at least 10% of our income. So if he makes 3,300 euros, let's round it off. Anyway, he needs to set aside between 300 and 350 euros a month. So if he now, with these expenses, manages to set aside 100, if he cuts out one outing a week, he'll reach 350 and we're at 250 if he trims a little bit. Here too, shoes, clothes, instead of spending 100, he spends 50 a month, he gets to 300. I'll send him to the gym there, done. He gets to 330 euros a month, which should be your 10%. Then one thing not to underestimate is the 13th, the 14th, and the bonuses. I mean, if you can save 300 euros for 12 months, that's an extra 3,600 euros. 13th and 14th of the bonuses. Let's say you only save 50%, not counting the bonuses. That's another 3,000 euros. And so you get to 6,600 euros. In a year that you manage to save with a bit of effort, you easily get to 7,500 euros. Okay. This means that in a year, without any unforeseen circumstances, obviously, without touching this money, from 10,000 you go to 17,500 euros. Okay, yes, this is a positive thing. Now, I haven't counted the premiums. Let's say he spends 50% of it on vacations, so 3,500 euros to go on vacation once a year. I think that's a fairly feasible budget for a family of 4. And just like that, we're able to balance the books a little bit. Okay then, if you want to make a big impact, what's the point, guys? And get it into your head and spend 6 months a year entirely focused on saving to give it a big boost, a somewhat substantial one. So, if you for a year go to halve the expenses, pay much more attention to what the expenses are. Maybe you don't go on vacation and everything. In a year you manage to set aside 10 to 12,000. Okay. Then, obviously this depends on the level of sacrifice one wants to make. Now let's be clear, this is not a disastrous situation. Okay, because you already have 10,000 euros set aside, so it's already a good nest egg for the situation you're going through. Yes, you could do something more. In my opinion, it's just about saving regularly. So try to take a step, so set it aside already, I don't know. Initially 200 euros per month, but every month, and then without touching them, and then maybe move to 300, 350 in a second step. This could be a path to take, I don't know, in 6 months, 7 months. In my opinion, it could be feasible. Then for the discussion, what prevents you from achieving what you desire? He says he has a constant feeling of lack and feels all the responsibility for my children and my partner. Now, the point here is to define what it would mean for you to no longer have this feeling. That is, to find yourself in a feeling where you are calm, you are serene, and you do not feel this weight on you. What should your finances look like? How much should you have set aside? How much should you be able to save? Every month, guys, clarity is power. Try to turn even what is not concrete into something concrete and measurable. In this way, you will understand where you need to go to eliminate this feeling. But to do this, you have to sit down, put yourself there, and figure out how to measure this thing. I know it's not easy, it's an exercise that needs to be done slowly, but this certainly allows you to transform what is not concrete into something concrete. Having said that, guys, I hope I've given useful advice.